I'm in Akureyri, Iceland, and I'm at the 7th International Congress of Arctic Social Sciences, and we're about to talk to Joan Larsen, the president of IASSA, the International Arctic Social Sciences Association.
We are here in spectacular Akureyri, northern Iceland, where we are gathered for the 7th Congress of IASSA, called the International Congress of the Arctic Social Sciences, which is held once every 3 years. Last time it was held was in Nuuk, Greenland, and previous to that it was in Alaska, Fairbanks. And the big theme for this Congress is circumpolar perspectives in global dialogue, the social sciences beyond the International Polar Year. And it really sums up the importance of this conference. It has to do with really where do we go after the big momentum that we created surrounding the International Polar Year. So what we have here for the next 5 days is a group of social scientists, enthusiasts. We are within the Arctic Social Sciences and Humanities. We have about 450 people registered, and we are offering a broad range of themes spanning all the disciplines within our science. 10 themes going from arts, culture, media, economic development, language, education, geopolitics, governance, and so forth. You name it, it's all there. And not only do we have 450 people registered, but we have 380 presentations. So that really sums up the enthusiasm within this community. People are coming here to share their research. And that is really what this is about. It is about creating a platform for sharing research, for networking, for getting together and building capacity, building synergies between projects. And what I'm really proud to let you know is that we are bringing a lot of young researchers to this forum, and that is because of the generosity of a lot of sponsors who see the importance in our social sciences and building and continuing the momentum that we created with the International Polar Year. So we have young researchers coming from throughout the circumpolar world, but also beyond. We also have a lot of indigenous participants, local residents from the north who normally don't have such an easy time participating in these kind of fora because of funding restrictions. But our sponsors have made that possible for us to have good representation even from these groups. So what we offer here is really a wonderful forum, a platform for different stakeholders to meet, not only those who are interested in the Arctic social sciences, but also policymakers and government officials. So we have different stakeholders who meet and discuss the importance of Arctic social sciences in a global context. And I think it's important to note that the Arctic social sciences are really coming more into the limelight in a sense. Of course, they have existed for a very long time, but certainly the International Polar Year gave us a significant boost, and we have tended to be perhaps as a science community a little bit in the background relative to our natural science counterparts. But what is important to understand is that we have a vibrant northern community. It is vibrant economically, politically, socially, culturally. And that is what we celebrate, and that is what we need to work on when we meet like this. And what we really need, some of the questions that we need to focus on over these next 5 days is how do we move on to build on the momentum that we created with the International Polar Year. And what was so wonderful with the International Polar Year was that it made our science more inclusive because of the funding and the focus that was put on the social sciences. It enabled us to get better participation of some of the participants that we value so highly within science, the indigenous participants, the young researchers, those coming from the local communities. And indigenous participants have now become much more engaged in the Arctic social sciences and humanities as a result of the International Polar Year. And I would want to say not as passive actors or as data gatherers, but as full partners in research. And that is really one of the legacies that we want to emphasize. And the question is, how do we continue that momentum as we move on? That is really some of the things that we are discussing here. But I also want to say that what I think is impressive with this Congress is that it is not just our communities within the North that are interested in our science. What is important is that it is really becoming a global interest. And we see participants from far beyond the circumpolar North. We see participants here from China, from Argentina, from New Zealand, from Australia. And it is wonderful to see, and not only that, but we also have the attention of the policymakers. And it shows that in order to meet that science policy interface that is so important, we need to work together, but we also need to put a human face on things. In order to engage our societies, our populations in the critical questions that are occurring in the North today with global change happening very rapidly from so many fronts, we need to work together within the sciences. We need to forge collaborations, and we need to be inclusive. We need to ensure that everybody is on board. And that is one of the wonderful things about ICASS. It provides an important forum for that and to see that happen.
Clearly you've made progress in the last 3 years. There are many indigenous people here, as you have noted. Nonetheless, we have interviewed people here who said that they felt there could be more indigenous people representation. Would you agree that there needs to be more progress made in getting indigenous people involved in these discussions?
There's still a lot to be done. A lot of that can be answered by more access to funding, I have to say, because the situation is that many of our indigenous partners, many of the indigenous collaborators may not have some affiliation to some institute or some university that can provide that funding. So they need to be engaged in projects. We also need to find new ways of providing that funding, getting it to where it is needed in order for our indigenous colleagues to participate more fully. But I can only agree that definitely we would desire to see much more than what we see, but it is progress.
I imagine that in the last 3 years since you last met, the discussions around climate change in the Arctic have become more urgent. Is that correct?
Yeah, maybe in the public's mind that is the case. I would say that certainly the science community have been aware of these issues for a long time. And you will see that in the assessments that we have put out, such as, for example, the Arctic Human Development Report assessment that came out in 2004. But I would say that the public and the policy makers are maybe now spending more time, and it has come more to their attention, and that also means that it seems more urgent suddenly. But I would say that as a science community, we have been aware of these things. Of course, now with the International Polar Year, more research funding has been available, which has allowed for more prodding into these issues and more research, and at the community level. So more results have come out that demonstrate that things are happening, and they are happening at a rapid pace, and that many northern communities are dealing with not only rapid change, but change coming from many directions and the complex interactions of those changes. Yeah.
What would you like to see is the big takeaway after 5 days of meeting here in Akureyri?
Well, I think I would certainly declare this a very successful conference if people go away from here with a renewed energy. They have found ways of continuing the momentum that we have built. They have forged new research relationships. They have started to build more capacity and synergies, and we have had an opportunity to share more, but maybe also that we have found ways of discussing some of the bigger questions that we are battling with from our association's point of view. Where does this association go? What are going to be some of the major priorities of our association in the future? Those questions are really something we are going to be looking at later this week.